Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We got a lot of discussion, but still a relatively small amount of information about the engines themselves. Like each one of you to just swag what you think each one of these engines would be worth on the market.
It's hard to say, but I would say if you were trying to launch that payload or that class of payload, whether it's 1,200 pounds or 1,200 kilograms or 1,500 kilograms, what would it cost on a commercial variant of that vehicle? And I'm guessing that that variant would probably be in the $30 million neighborhood. I think the motors would be about in the $30 million vehicle. Okay. The motors would cost about $30 million, I believe.
Each.
So each.
Okay.
But I think certainly if you go forward, a detailed cost analysis would have to be in place to see what the actual cost is, what the government cost, what they should be charging, things of that nature. Yeah. What'd you do?
Votes, okay. Congressman, thank you for the question. I would associate myself with Eric's remarks in terms of detailed cost analysis being required. We don't like to speculate, and if we were asked a question and had time to answer, I would task my research experts with talking with the Air Force about what they're willing to sell for, talking with the customers about companies about what they're willing to pay, and try and come back with some kind of a figure. I just have no idea at this time.
Well, it is so hard on the Hill to get a yes or no answer out of anybody, much less a good guess at a value, and I really do appreciate you swagging that for me, and it just gets us in the ballpark. Would either one of you care to comment on the percentage of cost of the launch vehicle the engine is? So if you have one of these engines, you have 50% of your program ready to go, 33, 25, what do you think?
Again, Congressman, it's an interesting question because each of these vehicles has different attributes. If you look at what Virgin Galactic is doing with Launcher 1, their entire first stage is an aircraft, and so their model is fundamentally different. I just, it'd be different for virtually every launch vehicle, I think.
I think in the category of launch vehicles we're talking about, though, I think it is significant. It is the motor. I mean, you certainly need the guidance systems and the payload fairings and everything else, but certainly you build a rocket around the engine and the motors. Yeah. So, but I'm not an engineer. I'm a poli-sci guy, so I would stick to the experts on that. But if you're asking me for a WAG, I would say it's significant portion of the rocket on this type.
Well, I'm figuring that they would probably like to have the whole rocket. What would the payload be on one of the ICBMs that we're talking about accessing?
The size of the payloads?
Yes. Weight of the payload. I
believe that the payload range is anywhere from 500 kilograms to about 1,500 kilograms. I think that's a rough estimate because it falls in the medium-sized payload area. It's whereas a Falcon 9 is a little bit larger. A Falcon 9 Heavy is extremely larger. What Virgin Galactic and Firefly are looking at are a smaller payload and the less than 500 kilogram payload, maybe about 300 kilogram payloads.
Yeah. So the question is, if I could just buy one of the ICBMs, take out the current payload, now I own it, what would the market demand be for the 500 to 1,500 range payload?
Well, that's the challenge. The market demand is high for that, depending on how you use that payload or that rocket. So, for instance, just recently, I don't have the exact date, but a few months ago, SpaceX launched the Orbcomm constellation of satellites, and they basically bundled, I believe, 11 satellites. And then they dispense these satellites out. So if you aggregate the payloads, it ranges. If you're just looking for, to use this launch vehicle for one payload, a 1,000 kilogram payload, then there you go. There may be a market for that. I'm not sure of what that mid-class market is. But I know mostly what we're talking about now, when you're talking about a much larger market, you're talking about the geostationary market, which is a lot large, or it's very stable. We know almost exactly what that will be and who will be launching it. With these smaller satellites that are going up, these smaller constellations, and I have a graph I could share with you, and the breakdown of the weight and the
I
size.
saw it in the talking points. I like that.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like OneWeb.
So OneWeb will probably, what OneWeb is looking to do right now, and they have already aligned of their 700 launches, they're going to go with an Ariane space launch vehicle, as well as augment with some of these smaller aggregation with Virgin Galactic. So the Virgin Galactic will maybe launch, a handful of satellites at a time, where the Ariane variant can launch a much larger amount because it's larger payload. And I think Elliott has a chart on that.
Yes, Congressman. In my testimony, there's a chart from our research folks that shows from 2006 to 2015 the breakdown of various masses that were launched. And in the area that we're talking about, the medium, 501 to 1,500 kilograms in 2014, just eyeballing it, it looks like it was probably 13 or 14% of what was launched. And in 2015, probably only about 9 or 10%.
Okay. Thank you very much.